Hello again everybody, it's that time of the week again for another 4 styles edit. This time I'm going to be editing a picture I took last weekend in Thieves Wood during a walk around. If you'd like to see the video I took of that walk around, it'll be available with a link at the end of this video or a link in the description, so be sure to check that out. So something to be aware of with this image, I've already been in straight in the horizon and merged the HDR image from a bracket of 5 separate images, so that should give us a little bit more dynamic range to play with. And as you can see, the highlights are already quite bright, but I don't mind that too much because that's just going to play into the image a little bit. So we'll see what we get. So coming straight into the video, first one, I'm just going to see what I've got with the highlights in terms of range. So I'm just going to take the exposure down, take it back up again. We can see that there isn't much detail left up there, but that's fine. We do have a blue sky to play with, so just resetting that and coming in again. Now, first image in the batch, and I think if you watch the videos you know how I like this now. I'm just going to take the temperature down a little bit, and overall just take that exposure down. Contrast, we're going to increase that. I really want to get those colours bumping in, and I think I'm going to go and increase the vibrance quite a lot before I do anything else. So that's going to be an overall of these greens, but as you can guess, usually I'm going to take the greens out of this first one. I don't think I've got too much hope for them. So let's try and play with the highlights and shadows a little bit now, see if we can do something with that sky. So straight away, taking the highlights down, that's going to take everything out of the image. I'm not too big a fan with that, so let's just take that out. Go for the adjustment brush, reset my settings on that, and let's have an auto mask. Actually, do you want an auto mask? Yes, let's go for it. Bump that size up. Let me just see if I've got that mask there and drop. So I've got the flow quite low on this from a previous edit. Let's just get that increased a little bit more. And let's just try and get around those trees a little bit. I'm not really trying to do much here. I don't want to go all over the trees, just kind of concentrate on that area of sky on this one. So let's get rid of the mask overlay for now and see if we can bring that exposure down. So don't want to go too whole with this. Let's see if I can get that mask in a little bit more, just so it doesn't look too crazy on the edges. So you can see we've got a halo effect going on there, and if we go crazy with the exposure, that's not going to look good. But I just want to get a little touch of blue in the sky, not much, just a little bit back, so it doesn't look completely blown out. There we go, that should do. So we'll leave that there. Now with the rest of the image, so sun shadows and highlights, we'll start playing with these now. So I'm bringing those highlights down a little bit. Shadows, yeah, let's go quite low in the shadows. I want to kind of get a lot of shadow in these tree areas, make it seem like you know, something in the forest kind of look. Whites can just go up a little bit to give that little shine to the ground, and blacks similar to the shadows, just not completely getting rid of them, but they can just come down a little bit more. Leave the tone curve for this one, and greens, like I said, I wanted to desaturate the greens in this one quite heavily and just give a washed out look. I'll take the luminance of those down a little bit, but what I want to do on the other side is take the saturation of the yellows. So I'm going to push the yellows for an orange. Oranges are going to push even more themselves, so we're going to start looking like we're getting little pops of autumn colour there, and the saturation of them can come up. Maybe not so much. So we just get like these nice little orange highlights, which I quite like in the picture. It just gives a bit more detail, the berries in the top right. And finally, to finish this one off, I will remember to do profile collections. While down here, I'm just going to put in a vignette, and that's going to give more to the shadows and everything, just brings it back into the center tree. So we're going to come down quite heavy on this one, at midpoint once again, and it just makes everything like light in the center here, so we can see, and everything's focusing straight on that center column tree. Okay, so let's see the before and after. So here's the before, And here's the after. Okay, let's move on to image number 2. So I'm not going to worry too much about the sky with this one, like I did with the first one, but I am still going to go for a bit more of a exposure, just globally down, and I'm going to go quite dark with this off the bat, with an intention of doing something later. Let's warm this image up a bit. Contrast, I'm going to take that down, and look straight to a radial filter. Right in the middle there. We're going to increase the exposure the other way. We're going to give this bright light just going down to the tree in the middle. And that gives us a kind of path to follow all the way down. And then what I'm going to do is also take a smaller adjustment brush, take the flow down a little bit, take the exposure. I'm going to put this up quite high because the flow should stop us having too much of an impact. The size, that can come right down now. And I'm going to just go over the tree a little bit. So not too much, but it's just to give us some more fine detail in the tree and light it up a little bit. Just take the size down a touch more. Give a few strokes. So it just gives us that light coming down, hitting the tree, and something more interesting to look at. So off the adjustment brush now. Highlight shadows, so shadows can come back down again. Just that little touch. Highlights, once again, don't want to go too high on the highlights because the sky is just going to really blow out too much. And the blacks, I want to take those quite dark down, just to make that column of light all the way through. So we've taken a couple of these down now. Vibrance, I'm actually going to bring that down. Maybe not. I quite like the orange. I quite like it, like we've got the sun on it a little bit. So we'll go up a bit. But we are going to take some more of the colour, put in a S-curve on this, and just muddy that image a little bit. Green saturation. I'm actually going to put it up a bit. I quite like the greens leading in, and that light will have a little bit more light, so the colour on the ones leading to just dances as it's going towards that tree. I think that's it for this one. So image number 2. Let's see before and after on that one. As always, let me know what you think in the comments, if there's any preferences you have of all of these images. It's always good to hear the feedback. So on to image number 3. What I usually use for a crazy, what are we going to do one. So let's have some fun. Temperature. Push that quite high. You would never naturally get that much yellow in an image, but we're going to have some fun. Exposure. So I've been knocking the exposure down because of that sun going through. And even with a bracketed image, you can see that that's what was taking 2 stops down on the day, and just the sun was against me with being an overcast sky. But we're going to increase the exposure on this one. Quite dark. Contrast. Just bring it down a little touch. I'm going to leave the highlights where they are, but shadows, we're going to bring them back. Blacks we're going to bring back. We're even going to go a little bit more on something different here, so let's bring in a gradient, and the exposure on that gradient is going to come right down. And the contrast on that gradient can just go up a little bit, and I'm going to bring the clarity down as well. dehaze it. Maybe not, just leave that where it is. And we're going to take that gradient, duplicate it. Bring it over, rotate. I'm going to have an opposite one on the other side. Try and get that rotation not too far off. So it's not too dissimilar to the last image where we put in a radio filter and it's just doing a vignette on the bottom. But I don't want to just focus on the tree, I want to still have some of the light and see that radiating down as though it's filling this area with sun. That's the intention anyway. People can comment and see what they think. Vibrance and saturation. I'm going to go... God, that looks a bit interesting. I do want to go a little bit on the saturation now. I don't want to overdo it. I just want to give that a little kind of like touch to it. And then overall clarity, I don't think I want too much. What I might still do is come in and paint that tree a little bit more like we did in the last image. So we've still got the settings from last time. Flow 20, size is good. Now I've zoomed in, I'm just going to get that size increased a little bit. And I'm not worrying too much, like a bit wild abandon around here. But I'm just trying to highlight the edges, get some shape to the tree. Similarly, a tiny bit on these little lower branches. Okay, how's that looking? Not too bad. Greens, there's a lot of yellows in this at the moment, so tell you what, actually, might not just be a fan of green, you know. But anyway, yellow's going to come down, greens, reduce saturation, and I'm going to push this quite hard for an autumnal look. Not going too crazy. Reds can come back towards the oranges, not that there's much, there's a little bit of red in this image, but they can come back towards oranges, and yeah, those greens can really be gone. I'll actually take them more towards the yellow for any that are there. Saturation of those yellows. Yeah. I'll take up. So the oranges, not the yellows. And saturation of the yellows will actually take down a little bit. So we want to try and get more of an orange boost in the image. And it's kind of like an artificial autumn. It probably does look a little bit artificial, but I'm quite liking it at the moment. And I think as well, just in those shadows, see how this looks. I want to put in more orange just in the shadows. Maybe gone too far. Yeah, we'll leave that. So we're going to come down another vignette, global overall, as well as our one on the bottom. Once again, it's just to focus on that tree a little bit more, so it'll bring in some of these colours. A bit too far. Midpoint. That's looking good. Yeah, let's leave the roundness where it is. So that's image number 3. Let's do the before and after on that. So here is the before, and here's the after. Okay, final image, image number 4, black and white. Let's keep that tradition going. So straight away, as soon as we go black and white, in my opinion, we lose a lot of definition in terms of this foreground. And we can see the tree a little bit more, but it is still quite lost in terms of the other trees. It's quite the same colour. So what I'm actually going to do, and this might work, it might not. Had to try everything right. So if I go into any kind of other adjustments, don't know why I'm using the mouse for that, but I'm just going to put in a drop in exposure, I've still got my mask in, and I'm going to go straight in and drop my brush. Now let's similar kind of thing, and I'm going to paint over our tree, our center of view subject in the middle there. And what I'm trying to do, similar to what I've done on the other images, is give it some definition compared to the others, and just make it seem like that tree's coming out a little bit more. Trying to get those branches at the top. There we go. So get rid of the adjustment brush now. I'll start playing around. So contrast, I'm going to come down a bit. Quite bright image. There we go. So exposure, and then contrast. Yeah, I want to go quite heavy on the contrast. I want to get all of this detail, all of the different shadows and everything. And speaking of shadows, that's going to come down to highlights. Just a touch, but shadows. I'm going to go quite dark and deep. Whites, just separate them a little bit, and once again the blacks. And I'm going to try and play with the curve a little bit, get some more shadows in there. I'm just keeping an eye on the tree just to make sure that it doesn't go too far out there, because we don't want to lose it. So I can just flatten our blacks a little bit, so bring them more towards the greys. Gives it a bit more nostalgic look, and also we're not going to lose, we're never going to have anything complete black in that image. So I'm thinking that's starting to look good. And I'm not going to resist my temptation this time, so I really do want to add a little bit of colour grading to the blue, so it gives it kind of just a bit more of a coldness to that image, and it's going to be very, very subtle. Highlights, leave them where they are, I think. And once again, in with that postcard vignette. Maybe a bit too much. There we go. So that's image number 4. Let's have a look. Before and after. So if you want to see these images in a high resolution, just to check them out, to see what they're like, click the link in the details to my website. If you like, you can purchase prints of all 4 images, or send a separate request to purchase an individual one. Or if you just want to have a look at them and send me some feedback, tell me what you think, that would be great. And as usual, if you do like this video, please remember to subscribe, click the like button, give us a thumbs up, really do appreciate it, and see you again next time.